if you're a Chief fan, you have more likely of a chance to make the playoffs. And I know the NFL wants this. Taylor Swift, obviously, Travis Kelce. This could be Travis Kelce's final year for a Super Bowl run. And this is an old Chiefs team. They're going to be looking to reboot in the next 2 or 3 years. Something that Andy Reid over the years have been very good at doing, adding players in the 4th and 5th and 6th rounds. Kareem Hunt, if I'm not mistaken, was a 3rd or 4th round draft pick. And they've done this year in and year out. I remember Tyreek Hill was like a 6th round draft pick, a punt returner. They transitioned him into a wide receiver and became one of the more dangerous wide receivers in the league with the Kansas City Chiefs in such a short time. But the Chiefs are not a Super Bowl contending team this year. I've said this for the last 3 seasons. Now, last year they went to the Super Bowl thanks to the referees, and I think a lot of the reasons why they won this game against Indianapolis was because of the referees. I'm not going to say that the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes didn't have a great day. He didn't throw any touchdowns, and again, he didn't have one of those games where you would think a quarterback, because he's an elite quarterback, having 5 or 6 touchdowns when you're throwing 352 yards in a game. He didn't have one of those days. But Patrick Mahomes is as dangerous as any quarterback in the league, because not only can he throw the ball, he can move outside of the pocket, escape search situations, especially against good defenses. And he did that as well as we've seen him do this season, especially in the 3rd and 4th quarter. The Indianapolis Colts, I still think, are the best team in the AFC. Right now, a 10-2 Patriot team. They have the best record in the AFC, and they look like they're going to get the bye week, and they've been sensational, and their quarterback is right now an MVP candidate. Thank you, Mikey C., for giving us your take on that before the season started. I disagree. I think their schedule is one of the easiest in all of the NFL. Nevertheless, you play what's in front of you, and the Patriots are winning games, and they've been sensational. And you go back to Kansas City, a lot of people thought 6-5 or even 5-5, are the Kansas City Chiefs ever out? Until they're completely out, are they ever going to be eliminated? And with the NFL and the way the NFL works, they're never eliminated, guys. Ever. Because as long as there's referees in the game and they're getting calls go their way, which they did in the 4th quarter, really, with the last 5 minutes of the game, you have calls that made you shake your head. The only call that I would say went against them was the Kelce call early in the game. Besides that, every single call went to Kansas City. And I think the NFL, and you can doubt whatever you want to say, you're going to tell me that I think the NFL is in cahoots with the Kansas City Chiefs. I've always said this. The NFL wants their stars to be in the big game. And right now, Patrick Mahomes is the biggest star, one of the top 3 biggest stars right now in the NFL. So, of course, they're going to do whatever they can to try to squeak the Kansas City Chiefs into the playoffs. Because with one game, and you only have to play one game in each round to get to that AFC title game, to get to that Super Bowl. It's not like you have to play 3 games, best out of 3, or best out of 4, or best out of 7. It's not like that. It's one game, and that's it. When you could have a bad day, or the referees are not on your side, a.k.a. the Kansas City Chiefs, as they always have them on their side, and you can win the game and move on to the next round. And that, to me, is why football is so wide open every single year. The Indianapolis Colts were one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. One of the worst. They add Daniel Jones. This is practically really the same team. They added a tight end in the draft. They added some pieces. But this is practically the same team they had last year, and they're completely different. And why are they completely different? Well, obviously, the way their schedule is set up, some people would say their schedule was a little bit easier than last year. I would beg to differ, but that's what some people would say. And Taylor's had a really good year. Jonathan Taylor has been the best running back in all of football. You can argue that he's been one of the best offensive weapons in football all season long, even though he didn't have such a great day against Kansas City on Sunday. To me, the Indianapolis Colts are as interesting as any team right now fighting to make the playoffs or even a Super Bowl contender. Why? Because with Daniel Jones at the helm and a lot of questions on the quarterback play. They drafted a quarterback in the first round a couple of years ago, and now he's going to be they'll be looking to trade him in the offseason and sign Daniel Jones to a long-term deal. Daniel Jones has been as great of a story the NFL has seen in the last 5 years. And why? Because the Giants threw him away. They threw him away. And then he went to Minnesota for what? A couple of games last year, and then he became a free agent. Indianapolis brought him in to help Riley Leonard. That's really the truth. Riley Leonard, who in the offseason trained with Daniel Jones for the last few years. Riley Leonard's a Duke player that eventually changed and went into the portal and went to Notre Dame and went to a national championship. They brought him in the 6th round. They brought Daniel Jones because he's a notable personality that he knows very, very well that can help him transition in the NFL. They're kind of the same player. I would say Daniel Jones has a better arm, but Riley Leonard and him, their style of game is very similar. Riley Leonard might never see the field ever for the Indianapolis Colts for the season that Daniel Jones has had. He won the job and has just completely ran away with it all season long. He's probably going to win Comeback Player of the Year. I don't think you can argue he's been the Comeback Player of the Year. The Indianapolis Colts is one of the top 3 teams in the AFC and one of the favorites are coming out of the AFC this year. And going against a Kansas City Chiefs team where they're really dominating the game in the first half and then completely falling off in the second half to a Kansas City Chiefs team that look and have looked old. Their defense has looked old. Spagnuolo play calling has looked as old as it hasn't been over the last couple of years. Because if you look at Spagnuolo, he's one of the best defensive coordinators we've seen in the NFL in the last 20 years. He comes from that hard-nosed Eagles defense. He was obviously under many different coaches and defensive coordinators from the Eagles organizations before he took over for the Giants as the Giants defensive coordinator. And then he went to obviously coach for the Rams, the St. Louis Rams, and then lost the job in a couple of years and has never gotten a coaching job since then. But he's been a successful defensive coordinator, and some guys work very well as a coordinator, and others are not very good coaches. So I think he's been a successful defensive coordinator. And to me, the Kansas City Chiefs have had one of the best defense, one of the more underrated defenses in the league over the last, I would say, 10 years. And under Spagnuolo, I think it's been 8. He's been sensational. And one of the reasons why I believe I think 2 out of the 3 Super Bowls that they've won, I think he was the main reason why they've won those Super Bowls, because of his defense and the way their defense plays and very aggressively. Yesterday, I almost said last night. Yesterday, I just believe the Kansas City Chiefs were helped by the NFL. And I love Andy Reid. I want to see Andy Reid in the playoffs because he's one of the best play callers we've ever seen. You can argue that Andy Reid is one of the great and one of the best play callers we've ever seen in NFL history. And Spagnuolo is one of the best defensive play callers we've ever seen in NFL history. You got 2 coaches on a roster that have been very successful at what they do. And again, you look at Kansas City, all Kansas City has to do is sneak into the playoffs. And when you look at those numbers, a 66% chance now to make the playoffs, Kansas City knows in any given Sunday or any given Saturday, they can pull off a win and move on. And all it takes is one bad play or one fumble or one mistake by another team, no matter how much better that team is or home field advantage they have, they can win and squeak right in to an AFC title game where they match up very well against Buffalo or one of these other teams that over the years they've matched up very well against. And again, I just don't understand. And I know everybody's jumping. I know I have a lot of Kansas City Chief fans that are friends of mine. And they reached out to me after the game, and you said this game wasn't going to be even close. And when I said that, it wasn't really even close until the second half of the game. And then everything started to go the Kansas City Chiefs way. And I will say this about the Indianapolis Colts. If they play this way, they're not going to last. Because you cannot give guys like Rice, who, by the way, had his best game back. That was probably his best game back since the suspension. Now, he's looked good over the last 2 weeks, but again, he's still trying to get his feet under him. But you're seeing how dangerous this 1-2 punch they have with him and Patrick Mahomes. And if Rice is playing at the top, at his top level, and you get a Travis Kelce that's open, he's not getting double teamed, or he's moving in the seam of the defenses, and there's not many guys that can stop him in the open field, you're going to see that Travis Kelce is going to get more touches, more looks, and more opportunities to put the ball in the end zone. And this has been the problem, really, over the last 2 seasons for the Kansas City Chiefs. Say whatever you want. The Kansas City Chiefs have been trying to figure out who their number one guy is. Rice has been up and down, healthy, stupidity, things on and off the field. He hasn't played in a full season. When was the last time Rice played in a full season?
Yeah, that's never been in his career. He's a third-year receiver. He's been suspended last year or hurt last year, then suspended this year.
So they really haven't had a number one wide receiver since Tyreek Hill.
No.
So they're trying to find that guy, their go-to guy, if Travis Kelce's getting double-teamed. And last year, slowly but surely, at the tail end of the season and in the playoffs, he looked like he was getting old. He was right in front of our eyes. Travis Kelce looked like he was getting older with the last 2 or 3 games of the season and then throughout the playoffs. And now you have a legitimate number one guy like Rice that can do so many things that they haven't had all season. Now, I like Hollywood Brown. He's a good player. He's not a number one. He might be a number 2 on other teams. Right now, he's the number 2 over there. And Xavier Worthy, one of the most overrated first-round picks. Right? He was a first-round pick or second-round pick?
Yeah, first-round pick. They made a big deal. The Bills trading with them.
That's right. Everybody thought he was another Tyreek Hill with the speed that he had and breaking records at the combine. Everybody thought, oh, this guy's going to be some kind of weapon. He really hasn't been that type of player, and he can't stay healthy. So now you add a guy like Rice. That opens up the field for a Hollywood Brown. That opens up the field for an Xavier Worthy or a Travis Kelce or even a running game, which they've had a lack of all season long, where everybody was telling them, well, when are you going after a running back? They had a chance to go after Breece Hall, and they decided, you know what, we didn't want to give up a third-round draft pick. Could you imagine right now if Breece Hall was the starting running back on this team with Rice, Kelce, and the weapons that they have right now? You're talking about a team that's completely different offensively.
They were also in on Achane, too, apparently, but Miami wasn't trading him.
I don't know who they were in on. I know Breece Hall was the guy that everybody said if he was going anywhere, he was going to Kansas City. But Kansas City was not willing to give up a third. They offered a fourth. And so the Jets decided to hold on to him. And I believe they're going to hold on to him in the offseason as well, as they'll franchise him and decide what they're going to do with him with a contract or either move him with a trade. The fact here right now is the Chiefs are not the same Kansas City Chiefs team they were. They're not even the Kansas City Chiefs team they were last year. There's a lot of lack of, parts of their defense that you question. Their secondary is not as good as it's been over the years. Last year, their secondary took a hit because one of their guys, Snead, decided to go to free agency and went elsewhere, but they were still a pretty good secondary. This year, they've went from one of the top 10 secondaries in all of football to one of the in the 20s. I would say they're ranked 22 or 23 right now. I don't know exactly where they are, but their secondary has not been good this year. It's been a big problem of their defense, and it's put pressure on their front seven. And again, I'm looking at Kansas City right now, and you're looking at they do have an elite quarterback. There's no question they do. But if they're going to rest on Patrick Mahomes, staying healthy and expecting them to make another run for another NFL or Super Bowl championship, they're sadly mistaken because they need everything needs to work on everything's got to move on all cylinders. And I think they've really in gear, they've only been in second and third. They've really never hit that fourth or fifth gear. So I'm going to tell you this right now. Even though they beat Indianapolis and the Colts, and the Colts are one of the best teams in the AFC this year, I think it was given away by the Colts because the Colts did not play defensively the way we expected them to play in the second half like they did in the first half. And I do believe that the referees were making the calls that were benefiting the Kansas City Chiefs.